like to call the Germantown School District Board of Education meeting to order March 17th at 7 p.m. If you're able to stand, please do so and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1A, official meeting notification. Dr. Reuter.
Thank you. Public notice of all meetings has been given by communication from the superintendent's office to the public, to those news media who have requested such notices, and to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Northwest Now, Express News, and West Bend Daily News. Public notice has also been posted in schools throughout the district and on the Germantown School District website.
Thank you. Item B, roll call. Mr. Barney.
Ewert.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Barney's here. Loth.
Here.
Pollock. Here. Higginbotham. Here. And Medved absent excused.
Item 2, thank you. Item 2, approval of agenda. Hear a motion.
Second.
Mr. Pollock with the motion, Ms. Higginbotham with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes. Item 3, reports A, District Administrator Update. Dr. Chris Reuter.
Thank you, Mr. Ewert. I have a few items tonight. First, I have a short presentation sharing some data from a recent survey that was sent out to all Germantown School District families related to our strategic planning efforts and parents' academic satisfaction. So I wanted to share that information. It's in your packet, but just quickly go through that information tonight, which is part of our first phase of gathering quantitative information. We've also, in the survey, one of the key questions was, would you be willing to participate in a focus group, which will take place after spring break? Tomorrow we'll be sending out a community survey that will be posted, sent through Skyward to all of our families, posted on our Facebook account, as well as our website, and then for any community members that would like a paper copy, there'll be directions on how to get that information from Melissa at district office. So I want to go through the data tonight. It's very favorable. It's a testament to our staff, this board and administration, and the work they've done the last few years without a strategic plan, but to be focused on key priorities that we know this community and parents want for their students. So this is the statement that was sent out to parents explaining the purpose of the survey and how we're going to use that information to set a baseline of overall satisfaction towards the quality of programming and school experience that the children of Germantown have that attend all 6 of our schools. You can see the response rate was astronomical. Almost 50% of families that received it filled it out. We had a response rate of 767 respondents. That's more than 20%, which is a sample size more than statistically significant. You can see the breakdown here by school and how they filled that out. If families have kids at multiple schools, they selected all schools that their children attend. All questions were set up on a 4-point Likert scale: strongly disagree, disagree, agree, or strongly agree. And so it's been broken down from agree, disagree standpoint, so you can see that. And so you look at the response rate of 767 respondents, where well over 600 feel that they are proud to attend our schools, they feel welcome at school, they like school, and they feel like they belong. And then this was an agree or disagree only over almost the majority, but almost unanimously, parents feel that we provide a safe learning space for students, and they do not feel like we have issues with violence or theft. So when you think about first and foremost, there are 3,900 kids roughly every day that come into our buildings. Our main job immediately is to make sure they're safe and they feel welcome, and the information we got back here is reiterating that belief. We also asked about the following statements about how they feel when their child is safe at school. They feel safe going to and from school. We have to remind that transportation, they're still our student, they're our priority, once they get on that bus at their bus stop, as well as once they get off that bus at their bus stop at the end of the day. They feel safe at co-curricular events, so safe at school-sponsored events, and other activities that are held at our school, and you can see the data is overwhelmingly in agreement with that. And then we look at the quality of overall academic programming at your child's school, and this is where that 4-point Likert scale comes to play. So over 80% of families responded either strongly agree or agree that they are satisfied with the quality of academic programming. The next question related to curriculum, and we've made some really concerted efforts in the last 3 years related to the science of reading, middle school programming, high school programming related to curriculum review process that is teacher-led with feedback and focus, as well as alignment to standards. You can see again, over 80% of families either agree or strongly agree that our curriculum is meeting their academic needs, which doesn't mean we don't have always room for improvement. That's why we go through a curriculum review process, but it's really great data to see and hear that response from, again, 767 families. Engagement, kids are at school for long periods of their day, so the question is, my child is engaged and interested in the academic programming provided by the school. Again, over 80% of families responded that they feel their child is engaged in what they're doing during those 8 hours they're in our school buildings. As well as, it's not only they're engaged, but what's the challenge, right? We want to always try to exceed kids' potential and help them see that they're more than what they may even believe they are. So again, over 80% of families agree or strongly agree that our curriculum is rigorous and challenging, and it encourages child to do their best every single day. Technology, you heard this evening through Finance Committee, more purchase for Chromebooks at our lower elementary level. And again, you can see again, over 80% of families agree or strongly agree that we are effectively integrating technology into their child's learning experience. I'm sorry, Heather, are you advancing the slides? Thank you very much, Heather. Got too many buttons up here. And then communication, always something we can improve on, any organization can. I know that there are many forms of communication, many ways to communicate, and communication is a two-way stream. You can see here, again, over 80% of families that took the survey responded that they feel that the school keeps them informed about their child's academic progress, either strongly agree or agree, but that's something we have a very concerted effort to always improve upon. And then talking about our teaching staff and their approachability and how they are able to answer questions or concerns about their child's progress. Again, over 80% of respondents said that they feel that our teaching staff are approachable and responsive to the needs when they have them about their child. And then understanding adequate information and how to support their child at home. We can see that that's one of our lower areas. Still, again, almost 80% of families agree or strongly agree, but an area that we can think about improving in our strategic planning efforts on how to build communication and support, so when someone's child comes home, parents know how to support continue the learning that took place during that academic day. And then another piece that we forget about often, but we do put a lot of emphasis in, but it's great to measure here as well. Again, 85% agree or strongly agree about extracurricular activities and enrichment activities to complement our academic programming. You've heard before in presentations I've given or Dr. Nerdle's given that when students are involved outside of the academic experience in school, whether it's a sport or a club, there's a higher likelihood that they're going to excel academically. And right now we're seeing that about 80% of high school kids are involved in some type of co-curricular. And as we plan over the next few years, we think about how do we tier that down through middle and elementary. We have things like Destination Imagination and some of our sports and clubs at the middle school, but how do we build that to be more robust and pertinent to what kids want to do beyond the school day as well. And then My Child has access to opportunities that foster creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. So you think about some of the coursework that's been brought forward for approval and how we look at, Jake looks at our curriculum review process to make sure that whether it's elementary program or middle or high school programming, how we're establishing a basis for creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. Again, above 80% of satisfaction. This question here, the school effectively supports the students with special education needs. It's an area that we can always improve on. I know that working with Katie, you approved tonight through Finance Committee the mental health grant, which is going to be helpful when it comes to students not only with special education needs, but all students, and some of the work she's done this year to revitalize our special education department around compliance, but also expectations. I expect to see these numbers increase as we benchmark this in future years. And then school provides adequate opportunities for advanced learners to excel. So as we think about the work that's coming out of teaching and learning, how do we work to not only meet kids where they're at, but help them exceed where they're at and help students that might already be there continue to grow and learn over time. And I think that's going to be a caveat through future curriculum review processes as well. The academic programming prepares my child well for future academic or career success. You can see 83% of people believe that after their child will graduate from Germantown High School, they'll be ready for a future in either post-secondary or a career right out of here. And we've seen that with a lot of our CTE programming, our Ed for Employment plan, SOAR work that's come out of the academic career planning work that's come out of the high school, and we're working to scaffold down to the elementary level. That'll only over time will be an area that we will see these numbers improve. And kids spend a lot of time at school, so they better love learning, right? So we got to make the environment a place where kids want to be, but also hold them to high standards and accountability and support them to get there. So again, you can see almost 80% of families believe that we as a school district encourage a love of learning for their child. And they believe, over 80% again, believe that their child is receiving a high-quality education, which aligns directly with our mission and vision to be the premier district in the state of Wisconsin. And then would they recommend someone to move to Germantown to join our school district? Again, 80%, almost a little over 80% would recommend someone to join our school district. As I said, our next step will be the community survey, followed by focus groups with interested parents from the academic survey, as well as community group focus groups. We're going to reach out through our connection as a chamber member and my position on the chamber board to work with some of our local businesses to see what the local businesses are looking for, specifically for post-secondary and careers within this community. Like we talk about retaining workforce, retaining our graduates to stay in the community and be citizens that can contribute, as well as understand from parents. We'll dive into some of these questions a little deeper with some qualitative questions to kind of look for themes of what parents, where we might see areas that we can improve and what parent feedback we'd have, which then will be compiled into information that will allow us to build some strategic goals for the next 3 years. So I thought it was important not just to send this out or post it on our website, but to walk through each question tonight, be proud as a school board, as a school district. These are amazing numbers in my opinion, but that does not mean we don't have room for improvement to either maintain or exceed what I've shared this evening. So I'll open that up for any questions you have.
Any questions?
You already pretty much answered it as far as getting the focus group together, because obviously it's important that we know that we're doing really well, but what are those things that are causing the ones and twos in some of these categories? So looking forward to...
As well as why do we have 3s and 4s, right? What are the
Right.
bright spots and how do we
Yep.
use what we did well in one area to improve in the areas that maybe we need to lift up? Yeah.
I'm hopeful that some of the people who answered 1 and 2 in a majority of those questions volunteered for
Yeah.
the focus groups.
Yeah, and I don't know, I didn't desegregate, and it's an anonymous survey, but you had to put your name in for a focus group and contact information. But yeah, and hopefully that yields out, to your point, Mr. Barney, because that's going to be that's the point of qualitative work.
I think the percentage of respondents, 767 households responded to this.
Yep.
To me, that's an amazing number. When
Yeah,
you look at
it's
survey,
somewhat ridiculous, like from an amazing standpoint.
I think, and as a board, I think we lean into parental input, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it shows that our parents are there and involved. So, thank them for that.
Yeah, and I think we had it open for 2 weeks, and we had over 600 responses within the first week. So it was, yeah, I got it. That means they're reading what I send out, and then they're also responding to it, which is good.
That explains that communication.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Rader.
I have 2 more items for my report tonight as well. The second one being an update for the board with our work with MD Roffers and our study on future enrollment projections. Our extensive data file was sent to them. They received it. They made sure that they knew we had received it. I want to thank a lot of people at district office. I won't go through every name, but it was a team effort to put together information dating back to 2015, from capacity in buildings to square footage of parcels of land to enrollment from 2015 in various areas, and a couple key dates so that the board is aware of this and the general public, because I know this is a conversation tonight at the village board meeting as a few trustees and the village executive director reached out to me asking information about MD Roffers. On April 3rd, MD Roffers' team will send representatives here to Germantown to meet with village representatives to discuss future expansion, current expansion, demographic information. I did share as part of our data set, which was not asked for, but I took our video feed from the March, I'm losing the date, 11th board meeting. Though it was a 4-hour board meeting, I gave them specific timestamps to look at and view based on presentations from Steve Krucklau, myself, and comments from multiple board members. So they have that as reference to some information. And then on April 8th, MD Roffers' team will be meeting with the village of Richfield to discuss that area of Germantown school boundaries and expansion. I've asked that post both those meetings, they connect with myself and Ms. Altendorf so that we're able to get a feel of what those conversations were and fill in any gaps if need be. Any questions about that?
Do we know, are they meeting with any other municipalities that we represent?
At this time, that's what they've shared. I do have a follow-up email I sent today asking about Polk, Colgate, those areas, Jackson, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the development's coming in Richfield and in
Richfield,
Germantown,
yeah.
but I know Jackson is building housing to the southern end, which is where we come into play.
For sure. So I had a follow-up email this afternoon. I have not heard back as of today.
Thank you.
And then the last thing, I know the board has received some questions regarding federal funding and the status of some of our federal dollars and how that's playing out and what's being cut. I just reiterate that nothing from the federal government has been brought to the Department of Public Instruction or local school districts relating anything that will impact our current operating budget. You'll see in our board packet under District Administrator Update, there's a table that breaks down all of our federal dollars for the 24-25 school year. And as of this evening, we have not received any information that there will be any cuts to next year's funding. There are many rumors out there, and Ms. Altendorf and I have talked about this, that as we pivot into the next fiscal year with a couple unknowns, if there will be any changes to federal funding, as well as we do not have a biennial budget. That sounds like it won't be approved by July 1. We've been advised by our collective associations that will be operating off this current fiscal year's numbers until a state budget is approved. And again, nothing has been cut in the federal funding other than conversations or news media reporting something could happen. So we're ready if something is reduced to pivot and use our dollars to its maximum potential. And if anyone watched our board meeting from last Tuesday night, I think I reiterated that clearly, that we utilize every penny to its fullest potential without trying to overtax at the local municipality, and we'll work and keep the board informed if there are changes at the federal and or state level. So one of the rumors I hear often is special education's going away, and that's not true. It won't go away, and funding will not go away. In fact, as we've said at this table, Mr. Ewert, myself, and Mr. Barney, and Mr. Miziak sat at the table with Dan Knodel and advocated for more special ed funding from the state level.
Yeah, we've had a couple of ongoing conversations in regards to funding and the state process, as well as Dr. Royd and I meet every Monday, and we do discuss what's new in the world of the federal education plan, if we call it that. I just think as a board, we're ready to receive that information when it's factual.
Yep.
It needs to require that action, and then it'll be an agenda item here. And we'll take the appropriate actions then, but as a staff and an administration, your team is doing that work consistently and keeping us updated as needed, so we're prepared for that. And we'll make that action when it is required, if it's required, but as of right now, it doesn't. I would agree with you, it doesn't look like we have any imminent funding loss. So if everybody could just take a breath, that would be fantastic.
Nothing has changed for this fiscal year. So.
Sorry, thank you, I didn't mean to
No,
hijack your
no,
report.
that's good. I think, and that's why it was part of tonight's report, because I know the board has received multiple emails, and I have as well, stating things that just aren't true related to federal funding.
Thank you. Anything further?
I think that's it. I'm going to turn it over to our student representative.
Yep. Reports 3B, Student Representative Report. Thank you for coming.
Of course. Hello, my name is Uma Garadia. So for Amy Bell, Read Across America Week kicked off Monday, March 3rd, and they participated in fun dress-up days. They also welcomed author Alex Willian for an in-person author visit on Wednesday, March 5th. This is a fantastic opportunity for students to connect with an author and gain insight into the creative process behind their favorite books. Additionally, our 1st to 3rd grade students are diving into their new book series through Series Showdown. During their library time, they are being introduced to different series, and each time they read a book from one, they can collect special trading cards. We hope this inspires students to explore new characters, settings, and adventures while strengthening their reading habits. For County Line, March has been a month of celebration and growth. Our staff and students continue to excel with teachers effectively utilizing the Wonders curriculum to align instruction with Wisconsin state standards. Professional development remains centered on science-based literacy instruction, enhancing our teaching practices and small group instruction. We are also strengthening community partnerships through engaging family events such as PTA Bingo, the Scholastic Book Fair, Read Across America Week, and DARE in collaboration with the Germantown Police Department. Thank you for your continued support in making County Line a place where every comment thrives. MacArthur is gearing up for spring, and they're excited to welcome their warmer months with lots of learning and growth. Our teachers have been increasing their knowledge of literacy. The Professional Development Day in March was geared towards interactive read-alouds and solid understanding of the progression of standards. Our oldest scholars visited the middle school to watch the band and choir perform. It is always a wonderful sight to watch our scholars realize the wonderful things they can look forward to in the future. The PTA did an amazing job planning and bringing to fruition our biggest fundraisers, the McCarnival. Many efforts went into getting sponsors and making the event a memorable one for our scholars, and we appreciate all our PTA does for our school. MacArthur welcomed the first district literacy information night into our doors at the end of February. It was great for the reading specialists and members of the administrative teams to connect with families on how to best help our scholars with foundational reading skills. Students at Rockfield are having an exciting month already. Learners were able to experience the annual Fitness Day event, which was filled with lots of fun activities and a picnic lunch on blankets in the cafeteria. Thank you to all the volunteers and Ms. Reedies for your hard work in helping to put on this special day each year. In addition, our learners received a visit on March 12th from the KMS 7th grade band students. Finally, we wrapped up our Rockfield Battle of the Books. The students all did a great job reading the books and answering questions. One 4th grade team, the Bookworms, even went on to compete at the online state competition at the end of February. Great job, readers. At Kennedy Middle School, there are lots of happenings lately. In the evening of February 5th, they had a great guest speaker for our families and parents. He presented on adolescent brain development and its impact on decision-making, emotions, and risk-taking. Generously supported by Germantown Youth Futures and Frederick Menominee Falls Hospital. We had parent-teacher conferences this month. KMS wanted to take a moment to express gratitude for the incredible partnership between our parents, teachers, and students. Your support and collaboration make all the difference in creating a thriving learning environment for our students. On March 6th, we had our Junior Achievement Career Day for our 7th graders. We spent the morning in sessions from over 20 different career presenters. Students took notes on a typical day, education needed, and etc. Thank you to Ms. Whitteman and our wonderful presenters and volunteers. Career Day is a part of our academic and career planning. It is a process all students engage in from 6th through 12th grade. ACP allows students to thoughtfully develop their post-secondary plans through lessons around employability skills, interest exploration, goal setting, and so much more. At GHS, we recently hosted over 60 different professionals from a variety of different career pathways for GHS Career Day. Students had the opportunity to listen to 3 different speakers of their choosing to gain insight and exposure to different career interests. This was our 2nd year running this event, and we have received great feedback from everyone involved. GHS continues to expand their academic and career planning work. Working with CISA, we offer multiple regionally approved career pathways, including but not limited to business and finance, advanced manufacturing, digital technology, patient care, and education and training. We want to thank the variety of guest speakers that come to our school on a regular basis. GHS is grateful to have so much community support with an abundance of professionals willing to come into classes to speak with our students and connect with our curriculum. Finally, freshmen and sophomores are about to engage in the pre-ACT, while juniors prep for the ACT, all of which is taking place tomorrow, Tuesday, March 18th. We will continue to use the data from these assessments along with other information to help guide and support student growth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always a great time to have you come and give us that information. I think it helps the community understand what the experience is within the building. So I appreciate you being the one willing to stand up and give that long report for us. Thank you.
And a reminder to high schools, get a good night's sleep, because tomorrow's the ACT.
We will go to 3D, JP Cullen, C, Kennedy Middle School presentation. Ms. Guerin and student team, I believe. And Brandon Holt, please.
Is it okay if I take this?
You can, she'll yell at us in the back if.
Just, yeah, this way I can do my dance moves more easily. Okay, line up right here. All right, my name is Jessica Guerin, and I'm here to present and show off our brand new Future City Club. Here we've got our entire club here from KMS. And if you just keep going to the slides, you can see these pictures of them holding their trophies with their full project. I know we have part of the project here. There it is, there it is. All right, so it's a hands-on cross-curricular educational program that brings STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math to life for students 6th through 8th. Who are our people? They were in a competition in January, and it was at MSOE, and they competed against many, many other teams at the annual Future City competition. And this club, Future City, has been around for a while, but this is our first time getting involved. The task was to design a floating city using an engineering design, create a solution to ocean levels, and implement futuristic features that address city infrastructure, energy, transportation, et cetera, et cetera. So as a team, they had to conduct research on how cities are designed to meet the needs of the population, and then they had to figure out zoning, construction materials, food, health, and the theme overall above the current, because it's a floating city. So they created Europa City, and they're going to talk about it in a little bit, but the good news is that the first time out, they got 16th place out of 50 teams, and I think that is pretty amazing. Here are our staff members, here are members of our club, and they're going to talk a little bit about what they experienced.
Hi, I'm James. I thought Future City was an amazing experience. We liked being able to talk to professionals like engineers and what it was like to be one.
Hi, my name is Taha. Future City helped us communicate our ideas from our individual research to our team. We worked together to create the model from our own vision as we learned to compromise. It was fun to think what a city could be like in the future.
Hi, my name is Elijah, and Future City is a team-centered thing. We enjoy being able to work with other students from other grades. And we didn't just problem solve, but we worked together to accomplish our goal while building friendship.
Hi, my name is Grayson Letourneau. We enjoyed the creative aspect of the competition. From the essay to the presentation skit and model, we had a blast. We look forward to next year's new theme and challenge.
Hi, my name is Asher. Future City helped us learn and grow as a group. We learned skills that we can use in the future.
My name is Mrs. Guerin, and I'm very proud of them for the first time to be, get 16th place out of 50 teams. Do you have any questions for these young engineers?
Sorry, Mike.
A floating city? You guys familiar with the Jetsons?
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Ask your parents,
Yeah.
or your grandparents.
Yeah.
So the city was floating on water, I take it?
Yes.
So like, the model wasn't floating in water, but we planned ways that like, if it had been a real city, it would have been floating in water, and we thought of like different things that would make it able to float.
What did you guys find is the biggest challenge working together?
Not like agreeing and compromising, because it's like we all had different ideas.
Yeah, mostly just getting all the ideas to work together.
Yeah, that's really it.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. We appreciate, Mr. Garrett, I'm not sure if you have more presentation, but students, fantastic public speaking. I know it's not easy to come in front of a room. Thank you for sharing the project with us. I think you'll find the biggest portion is that question that Dr. Reuter just asked, right? That how do we get our collaborative ideas together and pulling in one direction? And I think you guys did a great job working yourself to 16th place. You should be very proud of yourselves, and the parents should be proud of you as well. Thank you for bringing them as well for us to see this presentation.
And I would be remiss if I did not point out this final slide, where they got a special award for best use of recreational space. This is their plaque right here from the American Society of Civil Engineers. It's very, very cool. I know that Ms. Beresford, who is the club advisor, said that they kept coming back and coming back and coming back to see their whole project. So their whole project is that entire thing. So the most important thing we have to do right now is figure out where we're going to display it, but it's that whole thing, and this is just part of it. Does anybody want to talk about the recreational space real quick?
So the recreational space is full of like stuff like recreational things. We have like 7 flags, which is better than 6 Flags, and we made our own sport called Chuck the Cheese. It's where you chuck cheese at people, and after the game's done, you get free cheese. In each match, it's a different kind of cheese. And there's a bunch of other things like laser tag, parachuting, etc.
Is there a Parks and Rec member taking notes?
I was looking over at JP Cullen and PRA to see.
Only in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so we had like a central location full of recreational stuff, which is like that, and then we also had like other stuff spread throughout the city, like parks and stuff.
Yeah, we really appreciate the time to come in front of you and just share this great club. Hopefully we'll be able to come in front of you some other time, and it will be doubled and tripled, because I know a lot of people were interested in being in this club after these 6 initiated it for us.
Fantastic.
Very good.
Thank you. Okay, thank you again for coming. Item 3, now we'll move on to the J.P. Cullen PRA Facilities Condition Report. Good luck topping the recreational section.
So I'd like to welcome our guests tonight from JP Cullen, Shannon Metoxen, Jason Burka, and Katie Mood, and then from PRA, Devin Kack and Nick Kent. They have the long-awaited presentation this evening on the work they've been doing the last several months to look at, as they said to me a couple weeks ago, look under every ceiling tile, every nook and cranny in this district to help us shape our future. And again, tying back to my original report, our strategic efforts and our financial efforts as a school district to make sure our spaces and our sites are of quality, so we continue to have the high performance and recommendations that we saw in our parent survey. So I'll turn it over, Shannon, right? You're starting.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. We'll get going here. Next slide. Just want to talk about the core team that helped us through this process from PRA's side. Nick Kent and Devin Kack are here tonight. Melissa Thompson and Heidi Kramer. And then from our team, myself, Jason Burke, and Ryan Kutz did a lot of the heavy lifting. And then Katie Muth really helped with gathering all the information, putting it together, as well as a lot of other people, which we'll walk through. So what we were asked to do is really, step one, create a facilities condition assessment, look at a ranking system that can help identify what should be done in a rough timeline when that should be done, look at your building systems, life expectancies, and then a summary of each of your buildings. And then also do an educational adequacy, looking at capacity, educational adequacy, and visionary spaces, which PRA will talk about a little bit further in our presentation. As we look at the timeline, November, December, and January is when we did the facility condition assessment. Just want to thank Frank and his team, working with Jason and his team to get in all the buildings, whether it be before or after school hours. A lot of the work was done during school breaks. Then in January, we did a mechanical and site civil assessment, and it was nice to not have all the snow on the ground, so we were able to actually look at some of the pavement and some of the green spaces and make those assessments. And then we worked on the educational space adequacy assessment. February, we did a draft report to the administration team, and we're here to do a final report. And then in May, we'll actually have the enrollment projections for you as part of this process. So from a facilities condition assessment, it involved building tours of all the information. We'll walk through those and documenting that. Wanted to really look at, from a safety and security standpoint, ADA, of course, was a big part of what we did. And then really looking at your systems, working with MSA on some of those mechanical, electrical, plumbing items, and then really prioritizing that maintenance list going forward. Just wanted to show this right here. This is a Matterport that we did in each building. So Dr. Reuter says we went in every building, every nook, any lifted tiles. We actually were able to take photos, and it's a system that we've been able to use, and it allows, we turned it over to Frank so he can use it in the future. But as we did those tours during off hours or over break, this is what it really looks like, and we can actually go down, walk through the building from a virtual standpoint. Really allowed us to take pictures of maybe a maintenance item that needed to be corrected, but then we can go back and, let's say it's wall tile, we could actually go in that room from our office, zoom in on that, show that wall, we could actually take measurements from it. So it's a really nice tool going forward to be able to do that, and then to be able to share with the district. Other team members, we had a lot of our superintendents come through and look at those corrective items that needed to be done. Point of beginnings, we worked with them, brought them on board to look at the green space and the sites, and then MSA, I mentioned, had done the mechanical, electrical, plumbing assessment along with PRA, walking through as well. So from a maintenance list pricing standpoint, I think the big thing here is we really looked at it, and it represents the baseline need of the next 10 plus years. We broke it down level 1, 2, and 3, which I'll explain in a little more detail here shortly. And then the other big thing is all the estimates assumed a 2026 construction and are not bid numbers. Again, we provided budgets for each one of these, and it's more like a smorgasbord because we have a 1,100-page document of all these items, pictures. So we kind of had to budget it from a standpoint of not knowing what the district may or may not take in the future. So again, they're all items individually. And as you guys, if you determine to do any of that work, all that work would have to be reassessed from a pricing standpoint, but this will give you a really good snapshot of what the items cost. Next slide, please. So how we looked at it, priority level 1, 0 to 2 years, we looked at it, as Devin coined it, safe, warm, and dry, to make sure those are the critical items that we wanted to look at and things that you could look at doing in the next 2 years. Priority 2, again, 2 to 5 years. Condition assessment, a lot of it was interior materials that were starting to fail, nothing that you would have to do today necessarily. They weren't a safety concern. And then priority level 3 is really things that didn't need any immediate work, but just some things you want to observe, make sure you're keeping up with maintenance so they don't become issues down the road. And then from a category standpoint, again, accessibility was a big one as we walked through looking at that. We looked at your site, the exterior, interior, and then safety and security, and then your systems, which would be your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, technology, and fire protection systems. So that's how we broke that up, and you'll see that, how we were able to do that going forward. We wanted to give you just a snapshot of life expectancy of typical products. Just, roofs, 12 to 25 years. Again, as you maintain them, and a lot of, as we walk through buildings, you guys done a great job maintaining some of these, so you are getting their full life expectancy of a lot of systems. The other one, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but air handling units, boilers, those have that life expectancy of that 25 to 30 years. In some buildings, you're either at or past that life expectancy, so that's where some of those costs came into play. And then doors and windows, just some standard things going there that we just wanted you guys to understand what a typical life expectancy of those products would be. So here's where we gathered up all the cost, and we have all 7 buildings there for you. As you can see across the top, level 1, level 2, level 3, and then a total. You can see level 1 for everything would be, $36.5 million if you guys were to do everything. $18 million for level 2 and $16 million for level 3 for a total of $71 million worth of work that we had looked at. We also just wanted to put a square foot cost on all levels, again, just to give you kind of a baseline of what each school would look at. And I think if we really looked at this, it would tie back to back in your last referendum, which schools you did a fair amount of work to, and then that square foot cost would be a little less. Ones that weren't done a lot of work to, those are a little higher. And a lot of that driving that is more or less the mechanical systems and the site improvements that would be needed in the upcoming years. So we looked at in themes in general across schools, and I'll just kind of highlight a few of these throughout this, what's written here. Biggest thing, elementary schools, site work is a big deal. Asphalt, concrete, starting to crack, starting to have some issues of failure, so that's a big part of it. ADA standards on most of the elementary schools, and that's really more a hardware function. Door handles are a big part of that. Interior maintenance, just again, across all schools, you start getting casework, ceiling tile, flooring that's starting to crack, starting to show signs of wear. Is a pretty standard theme across it, and then of course your mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. For the middle school, a big part of that is just the poor asphalt throughout. Again, some interior maintenance items, casework, ceiling tile, flooring, and then ADA, again, just more hardware specific, and then aging mechanical systems at the middle school. The high school, very similar. Some hardware issues with ADA. Several of the air handling units, makeup air units have exceeded or near their full life expectancy, so that's a big part of the cost. We had put on there updating entire building to what digital controls would allow Frank and his team just to allow those buildings to be more efficient versus pneumatic systems, which are just an older system now. And then site work, again, is a major component of the high school. So we created a sheet for each one of the buildings, each one of the schools. One of the things we wanted to share is just overall your site size, your building square footage, and then the age of the building when it was built, and then all the renovations that go with it, we thought would be good data to have going in the future. And then to the right, we created these pie charts. So just looking at the bottom pie chart first, that just gives you a quick little snapshot. Here 20% of the cost for this building would be level 1. Again, maybe 15% would be level 2, and then a big portion of this is level 3 at Amy Bell. So it gives you that snapshot, and then up above, you can kind of look where most of the costs are. So we broke it up to those, your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, ADA, site, exterior, and interior. Here, HVAC is probably, interior is just a lot of finish upgrades, casework, flooring, ceiling tile. Again, that's not all level 1 stuff. A lot of that is probably 2 and 3 at Amy Bell. HVAC, your biggest component is some of the piping, again, is just getting to be at a point where it's going to need some work to it. So we put that all together for you, and we've done this for each school. Just high level, want to walk through these. From county line, very similar. This one, level 1, would probably be in that 35% range. Biggest component here, as you can see up above, is your HVAC. That's really your boilers and your VAVs are at or near their useful life. So that's something you should be considering. And then the site, again, is a big proponent there, and that's mainly asphalt. MacArthur, very similar. Again, just the amount of renovations and additions over the years. Here it'd be classroom and cafeteria air handling unit is at or near its end of its useful life. Asphalt's another issue. The boilers here, again, a big part of HVAC, the boilers are from 2009. So again, it's that life expectancy thing that should start to be considered in the near future. Rockville Elementary, same thing, a big portion of this is level 1. Major component, again, classroom, office, air handling unit. The gym air handling unit is at or near its useful life. Boilers are in a similar situation, and then pavement, with the site being 20% of those costs. Again, another concern that we saw in that point of beginning, saw in their analysis. Kennedy Middle School, again, very similar, band, classroom, cafeteria air handling units. This one actually at Kennedy, the dust collector is well past its useful life, so that's something that should be looked at getting replaced. And then paving being, again, 25% of the cost from down below. High school, a big part of this is pavement. There's a fair amount of work that needs to be done from a pavement standpoint. 41% of it is site, and then the HVAC being 27%, again, air handling units. It's kind of a common theme there with, as those air handling units and boilers get up in age, it's just something that should be considered for replacement. And then the district office, a lot of ones there, again, age of the building, 1991, a lot of mechanical work needs to be done with that, and then the site should all be looked at. A lot of cracking in the asphalt parking lot, concrete, sidewalks, et cetera. So that's a quick snapshot. Again, there's a lot of detail that Dr. Reuter will be to look at all those individual items of what all those components are made out of. And the detail can be provided in that report.
Yeah,
and now I'd like to turn it over
before we move
to
to PRA with part 2, as Shannon said, I have a very thick read from PRA and JP Cullen that I'll be distributing to each board member that deep dives into every one of these for you to review and possibly have these groups back for future questions and information there. But for the basis of tonight, that wasn't part of the presentation. So I don't know if you guys had questions for JP Cullen before we switch to the PRA portion.
The ADA items, there seems to be a little sliver on every slide. Is it mostly round doorknobs versus door handles? Is that mostly the issue?
A lot of it is the door handles, and then it's like a pull side approach clearance, where your entrance into your classrooms, it doesn't allow for an ADA access in some instances. That was the common theme across most of it. And then there's a few things that bleed into like drinking fountains and so on and so forth, not having the high-low options available.
Okay, thank you.
So is that just like a recessed door approach, that you'd have to push the door out, or how does that?
Yeah, when you come in, you have to have certain clearances off the handles in order to be able to get in there for proper ADA access.
Sure. Just the numbers, obviously they're big numbers, they're 71 million. When you're budgeting that out for a parking lot, I'm assuming you're budgeting the max of a full tear out, right?
Yep.
Sub replacement versus more of a maintenance-based approach.
Yes, for this exercise, we did.
And then, does any of that number take into account what's already in the five-year capital?
No, that did not.
That's, okay, and I'm assuming it wasn't, is there questions I know we're gonna receive? $71 million is a lot of money. And I think it's important to note that some of that is already being worked on throughout the capital improvement, but this process actually helps strengthen his process around that as far as prioritization goes. So I think that number in reality is smaller as far as an unanticipated cost going forward. I think it's an important thing, but thank you. I'm looking forward, well, I don't know if I'm looking forward to, but it'll be interesting to see the actual breakdown of all of this. So that side of it I'm interested in.
All right, now we'll turn this way and listen to Nick and Devin as they share their findings with the work with educational space adequacy that will then fold into the work that I spoke about with MD Rockers this spring as well.
Great, thank you. So the second piece of the work was looking at educational space adequacy. So this is where we turn our attention away from I'll call it the nuts and bolts of maintenance, which is very important, of course, to look at and anticipate. Now we're going to look at how do these buildings function? How do they support the reason they exist in the first place, which is tools for the educators and for the students and the community to use. So if you want to flip the slide, there are a few things that we start looking at when we dive into these buildings. And I'll start maybe with the end first. It's maybe no surprise. Your buildings in general have a lot of really good things going on in them. The district, the community have invested a lot over the years in bringing these buildings up, improving them, expanding them. So we found a lot of really good spaces working well today. We had the opportunity to walk every building with Dr. Reuter and the principal of each one of these facilities, and really we actually did a second walk and looked at, through a different lens, how every space, every program is functioning inside of these buildings. And of course, there have been changes since the last construction projects were done at these schools. We're really looking at three fundamental questions when we look at educational adequacy. The first is a numerical analysis. That's the capacity. So how many kids can each one of these facilities serve? And we'll talk about how we determine that capacity in the next slide. The second piece we're looking at is, do we have any space deficiencies? Have things changed? Have things grown, shrunk? Do we have the right space? So the first one is looking at, do we have enough space? The second question is looking at, do we have the right space in our facilities? And then the third question is a little bit more long-reaching. So we know things are always changing, growing, different things are happening within the walls of our schools. What is the vision? What are things that may not yet be in the schools, but we anticipate coming down the road? So these are kind of our three fundamental questions that we're looking at. We'll start with the numerical one. And sometimes this is maybe the easier part to look at. What is the capacity? Now, sometimes we think, well, there must be an absolute number for capacity in a building. And from a life safety standpoint, a code standpoint, there is. But that's a very different number from the functional capacity of the building. So the functional capacity of the building is its ability to adequately meet the needs of the number of students and staff that come through the door every day. And those numbers are really based on three primary variables, and those variables can change over time. The first is, what is the student-teacher ratio? How many students are we planning to put in each one of our teaching stations in the building? And of course, that can change based on board action, enrollment, what may happen within those spaces. The second one is really more of a fixed number, and it's a national operational efficiency rate. So we know that there is theoretically a perfect school. If you filled up every single room, every single teaching station exactly to the maximum, that's your theoretical perfect school. We know that that probably has never happened in the history of schools. So when we are designing and determining a functional capacity in a building, there are actually national norms. So for an elementary school, we back down to 90% of that theoretical perfect school. A middle school is about 85%. And when we get to high school, we've got a lot of moving parts, a lot of different scheduling complexities. So we actually back that down to 80%. So we'll see what that looks like for each of our schools moving forward. And then the last one, and this is important here in Germantown especially, the number of learning spaces available. So what does that mean? That means that over time, the way spaces are used in buildings can change. That can be in response to a number of students that are actually in a school. That can be in response to changing programming. Here in Germantown, of particular importance is the addition of 4K to these buildings, which was not in place when the last round of expansion happened. So it changed the actual calculated capacity in our elementary schools. This is a quick snapshot looking at where your enrollment is for this school year against a 10-year high, and then where our target capacity is. And our target capacity is that number that takes into account those operational efficiencies. It's not the theoretical maximum, it's where you would target from a planning purpose. So you can see the enrollment today, with all but the exception of MacArthur, is sitting a little bit below where your high water mark over the last decade has been. When we get the Roffers projections, we'll update those numbers looking forward. So you'll get an update to these numbers once we have those projections.
Up next, we like to look also at the themes. For the elementary schools, we see a theme of support. We have a bullet point list of basically of the images that you're seeing on the screen. Not only do we want to look at the words and what they mean, but what do the spaces actually look like? What kind of resources or what kind of support can they provide to the school? Appropriately sized rooms with adequate space for toileting for 4K and 5K. There are many different examples that are supported throughout the district. Dedicated and appropriately sized special education rooms to support full section schools. As Nick mentioned, as these buildings, their capacity changes with the enrollment that's in them. If a few of them have full section schools where we might have that almost more of that ideal school, then we're going to start pushing out some of those special ed support that many kids need these days. Differentiated learning spaces, collaborative areas, and small group rooms. We heard a little bit about small group rooms a little bit earlier from, I think, from the staff or the students that were here. We want to make sure that we're able to provide intervention or collaboration closer to classrooms and cutting down on transition time, providing more time for instruction. Staff resources and support for daily function, private meeting space, conference room, toileting, as well as professional work areas. And then consider adding additional space to best accommodate student wraparound care. How can we support the whole family that's coming to our buildings? So just like the Cullen team, we like to look at a snapshot, but here what you're seeing the difference is, right, the grade level at the building. So all the elementary schools are operating at a 4K through 5th grade. First, we like to look at, though, how are the students arriving and how are they departing the school day? As Dr. Reuter mentioned earlier in your survey, right, they're ours until they get on that bus. We want to make sure that they're received appropriately and in a safe manner. So here we begin to highlight, the existing school building. How are students arriving in district-provided transportation in our 8 buses at Amy Bell? How are the parents going and dropping things off? Is the drop-off separate from play areas, or is it able to be separated when needed? Next slide. Then we jump in and had a great conversation with the principal here. So the building, what we do is we tour, we talk, and we walk. The whole thing, we better understand how all of the spaces are being utilized. As Nick mentioned before, this is a snapshot in time for how the building is being utilized today, or this academic year, right? It will change. It has changed. And it will continue to change, again, based on programming or just the number of students. The darker colored rooms, those are special ed. The little bit lighter ones, those are core classrooms, right? Second, first, et cetera. And then the lightest blue, those are 4K and 5K rooms, right? That was a new addition into these buildings. And then you see some of the support spaces in purple, green, and also kind of in orange. So what was mentioned before is the core capacity is based on the number of classrooms that is present in the building during this snapshot in time. So 18 classrooms here at Amy Bell. And before I get into the graph, what I want to do is point out, you see this dashed line right in the middle. So that is when the district changed their boundary. So you're seeing this drastic change. Well, the change there was intentional by the school board to better allocate or properly align students to the availability of capacity within these buildings. As you all know better than I do, right? Otherwise, the main organizational areas on this slide is yellow is the maximum capacity, so that's that perfect school. Blue is the target capacity. As Nick mentioned, again, that's 90%. And then what we really want to see right now is the gray line. So the solid gray line, that's the actual enrollment. So third Friday DPI counts. Today we're sitting at 349 students. And then there's an overall trend line. So you just see that kind of faint little dash line. So just there's a steady decline, but that's over 10 years, right? And we've done some adjustments with boundaries and stuff. There's a whole bunch of caveats on the side. So we'll go through this, but otherwise, Amy Bell, max capacity about almost 470 with target about 421, and we're operating well within that. Over at County Line, as I mentioned, all the buildings, elementaries are operating with the same grade levels. Next slide. County Line is a little unique because here you're seeing, well, there's two site plans, right? Why do we have two? Well, there's a different drop-off versus pickup procedure. Part of this has to do with, and all school buildings work with this as a challenge. How do we line up all of our buses? Where do they line up? How can we make sure that students and staff and parents, again, are safe and separate? So here we're just seeing, and we want to make sure that we understand how these sites are being utilized, again, from district-provided transportation to parents. Next slide. Again, County Line, marked with the main entrance. You can see the office there, right, has a secure entry sequence. We talked about security just briefly earlier in the presentation with Colin. And you can begin to see how the building is organized. Buildings evolve over time in their organization. Here we have 4K in the front and 5K in the back, right? That might be due to the space available and what's needed for students. We can also see our 4th grade and 5th grade new addition over on the right-hand side that's supported by a collaborative breakout space. Next slide. Here at County Line, we have a higher maximum capacity than Amy Bell. We've got, because we have 22 classrooms now, so 18 to 22. So 565 about, target capacity just over 500. Here we're operating closer to that 90% at 490 with the current enrollment. Not quite as much of a jump here with redistricting. At MacArthur, same thing, right? Building's been supported well over the years with all those additions, renovations that are noted there. Many of the buildings have have been touched many times as growth has occurred within the district boundaries. Here at MacArthur, Mr. Gonzalez has set up a unique parent drop-off sequence, but one that works for the school, and that's important. It needs to work for the school, and again, to maintain the safety of students arriving and departing. Here, buses on the left side and parents on the right, so it's a good layout. Here at MacArthur, we're seeing a similar addition with collaborative space for the newest addition, and we're seeing the repurposing of spaces. Here, I'll point out one core classroom that's being used as storage right now because they don't have students enough to fill it or the need for the additional teaching staff. But here we do have 23 core classrooms in this building. Next slide. So MacArthur, more closely aligned with County Line, but one more classroom. So we're seeing the numbers just jump up a little bit more. And then current enrollment is 487 students. Again, we're operating well below the 90% threshold, so we're feeling real comfortable. Here you're seeing the growth at the school building, whether it's supported with building additions, with just people moving in to this area of the district. But look at that trend line, right? That's different than the two that we've seen previous. So something to take note of. The final elementary school that we visited was Rockfield. Again, supported with many additions over time. Next slide. Big site north and south. A little more challenged, right, as we look at the pickup and drop-off sequence. The same thing to start the day, to end the day, but just a little bit less room, perhaps, to do it. And next slide. This building's also unique, right? We're supported by multiple floors. right? So where are those specials that I talked about, right? Here we're looking at them on the ground floor. Intervention does occur on multiple levels, but special education is largely dedicated on that first floor. And again, you can see how the building's been organized kind of over time. You're seeing thickened walls that represent where building additions have been put on. Next, if we look at Rockfield's capacity, this one is much more consistent, right? But at only 16 classrooms that we're looking at right now, so the maximum capacity reduces from what we've seen in the past, the target capacity as well. Here we're only about 34, 33 students away from the target capacity with our current enrollment. So that sums up the elementary schools. Nick's going to go through the themes for the secondary schools, and hang on, it's going to be fun.
It's going to be great. All right, so taking a look over at our secondary schools, our middle school and high school. So some of the key themes that we saw here, and it's probably no surprise, we're familiar. The high school, the building we're in now, received a lot of change over recent years. The middle school received a bit less change. So common to both, we're looking at potentially finding more spaces for differentiated learning, more collaborative areas, and more small group rooms to address some of the different learning styles, learning modalities that are going on within these buildings today. Multiple teaching modalities, I just mentioned, that's also supported with flexible furniture. So we have areas in these buildings that are still sporting some older furniture that is, it moves, but it is not as flexible, as seamless as some of the newer furniture that are in our buildings. Over at the middle school, really looking at the curricular alignment and the offerings that are in that building and how they might align better with all the amazing things that are happening over here at the high school, right? So when we look particularly at STEM and CTE spaces, there is a very rich, robust programming offering here in the high school. When we look at the middle school, there are programs there, but we do not see the spaces that are commensurate with where those kids will go when they make the jump up here to the high school. Lifelong wellness, right? Again, that's an evolution of what physical education is. And how is the space at the middle school really aligning and preparing kids for what they will experience here at the high school when they matriculate up? And then pupil services. Again, at the middle school, kind of no surprise, pupil services is really kind of at the farthest end of the building that you could put them, and they're in spaces that are not the most supportive for all the important work that happens in that area. And they are very far away from the main entrance to the building and the administrative offices at the front entrance. And the last piece, this is really at the high school, but does also apply to the middle school. Re-envisioned athletic complex. One of the biggest pieces we know is the softball fields are, for the high school student competition, are at the middle school. We really want to look at ways to bring all of our high school sports over here to the high school campus and improve the offerings here at this campus. At the same time, the middle school does have a very nice site and a very nice piece of land with some facilities that are in less than stellar shape. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity over at the Kennedy Middle School site to improve those offerings. So taking a look quickly at Kennedy. So like some of our other schools, it has seen a lot of interventions over its lifetime. Of course, we are serving grades 6 through 8 here at the middle school. And if we look at our site plan on the right, you can start to see, again, this is a nice site. And you look at where our softball fields are at the north, a track, if we can, it's an oval up there. It's seen better days. But that is a wonderful piece of land and a wonderful piece of area that we can look to improve. The approach to the building is a bit challenging. We had a lot of conversation around how people who visit the building and are not familiar with the front door get lost from time to time. We know that the front entrance to this building is, well, one, there's kind of two of them. One of them is actually the front entrance, and it's kind of tucked around back in the notch of this building. We also don't really have visitor parking near the front entrance to the building. So the overall site layout and traffic flow should be looked at. How can we improve this? Oh yeah, there we go, here's the zoom in. How we can improve this in the future. Our buses are off on the left side. Again, if you were a visitor, signage would go a long way just to helping find that front door. Much like the elementary schools, we've cataloged how every space in this building is used. And this building in particular, and we'll see what the capacity calculations look like in a minute, there are quite a few spaces within this building that are underutilized. So there is additional capacity, should it be needed, that we could start to look at bringing back online. The last major projects, of course, in this building focus primarily along the 6th grade wing. That's that southern portion of the building, and creating those pods, those learning pods. The 7th and 8th grade areas in the building were largely untouched. So we do have a variation in the types of spaces and experiences the students will encounter as they make their way through 3 years at this building.
We also have a large area in the middle called the courtyard that's unusable.
There's that too, yes. So taking a look at capacity. So here again, this is now using 85%, not 90 like the elementary schools, to get to our target capacity. So the calculated number here is about 991 students maximum with a target of 842. So currently we're operating slightly over that target, and that's not really a point of concern. It's okay if you're within that wiggle room. That's kind of what that planning variable is for, but it is something to keep an eye on. Should enrollment start to tick up at the middle school, we would probably need to start looking at some of the existing spaces first that are within that building to capture back some additional teaching stations. And after that, start to look at, are there any reconfigurations that might be required if enrollment continues to grow. Again, Roffers will help us get a better picture of that. Over here at the high school, not quite as many modifications over its lifetime, dating back to 1968. Of course, a traditional 9 through 12 building, a very good sized site at just under 73 acres. Click the slide. Taking a look at where we are, we heard earlier about the large paving number at this building. That's partially due to the large amount of paving that exists at this building. So in discussing how flow around the building has been working, we heard it has been working generally well. Traffic flow is separated, it's well organized, and the parking counts do seem to be serving the needs of the community. Again, a lot of change happened at this building over the last several years. So you're starting to see the same type of mapping, looking at every one of these classrooms. And of course, many of them have been addressed fairly recently and are in good shape. The green areas represent the significant investment in extracurriculars and athletics and physical education spaces. We have our main entrance that was largely expanded, renovated, and modernized through the last project, the greatly expanded student commons immediately behind it. The purple areas are our specials. We are sitting in one of those primary pieces. That is an excellent piece of this building. And touring, it's wonderful just to hear and learn what has actually happened and how things have been working well since there was so much investment in this facility. A couple of areas of interest here. The classrooms, particularly the science wing, while it is still functioning well, we have quite a bit of capacity in it, it is starting to be more of a dated portion of the building, and it was not touched during the last renovation. So while it is still well-sized, a lot of capacity, a lot of great features, it is a bit different than other areas of the school. Looking at capacity, here, amazingly, you'll see our trend lines. We go down to 80%. And again, that is because we have the most complex, the most variable schedule happening here at the high school. So that is, again, that national planning figure. So our max capacity is just over 1,600 students. Our target, 1,284, and we're sitting almost spot on at that target, 1,288. So that is an incredibly efficiently run building at this point, and utilizing spaces really to their maximum. So that delta does give us some wiggle room for additional programming, for additional changes, and should the capacity change its trajectory, you'll see over the last 10 years it's trended downward, you do have space available here at the building. So, this is kind of the conclusion slide, key takeaways, and I started this by saying the community and the district have invested a lot in these buildings over years, and it is shown. Much like what we heard earlier today with the community survey, there is room for improvement in some areas. So what is going well? Building security has been very well thought out, very well maintained, and has continually been reviewed. Building additions have brought additional opportunities to each school. I'm sure you're all aware of it. The community has been enjoying those for a few years now. Elementary school furniture is wonderful. It exemplifies the flexibility and the variability that we are looking for in adaptable multi-purpose spaces today. Areas for consideration in the future as you think about how can we do even better with these facilities. Those themes of support that we've brought up, those are really looking at a lot of areas surrounding the core curriculum. We talked about at the middle school, what are those STEM programs? How can we better align what's happening at the middle school with what's happening up here at the high school? And then really over at the high school here at the athletic complex, bringing all of our sports back on campus and really maximizing the blessing of land and the facilities that you do have here for the students. That's you, Shannon.
So, again, just want to take us back to where it started and what the ask was, the facility condition assessment, and then doing the educational adequacy in the report that we shared tonight. That concludes our report for this evening.
Questions?
Mr. Barney?
Love the presentation. Great data. I look forward to seeing the, 1,100 pages of detail. Certainly, the first thing I saw was the sticker shock. But I think probably everyone on the board did 71 million. That's a pretty big number, but as was already mentioned, some of that's already in our forecasted capital improvement plan, so hopefully it won't be nearly that bad for us.
That 80% utilization number here at the high school?
Yeah.
Just what exactly is that 20%?
It effectively is unused capacity, right? So when we look at, and any principal who has put together a high school schedule can probably attest to, when you start to look at the diversity of course offerings across a number of periods, across 2 semesters in a year, there's inherent planning inefficiency that happens, right? So you may offer a course that has 16 students in it, but that classroom could accommodate 27. So that's where that 80% comes in. It's trying to capture the realities of a high school schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, inefficiency is not in a negative way, it's just a matter of, correct, that's the reality that class isn't full, but we're not going to not offer it if we have enough interest.
Yeah, it's not a negative thing. It's really a tool for planning and a reality of what a high school curriculum looks like.
So in that scenario, do you see a reconfiguration of the schedule that allows us to bump that 1288 number up? Or is this what you're saying the building is currently suited for?
It's based on the curriculum and schedule that operate today. So yes, that is one of those variables. If curricular offerings changed, if class sizes changed, if schedule changes, right? So we've seen this in high schools that may move to like a block schedule. That's a fundamentally different way of using time and space. That will change that number. So the simple answer is yes, you could change the schedule and the course offerings and increase the capacity of the building.
However, what students enroll in will drive what we schedule. So we could change the schedule and then.
Yeah, I think there's.
Right, there's a lot of variables there that like we're working through our our staffing plan, which we're going to approve tonight, and that's based on, for the high schools, 100% based on what kids enrolled in and what we offer, and then we have to use those variables of are we going to run a course of 14 in an elective versus 30 in an English class.
Right. I think I just look at it from a community standpoint. If we see 1604, why are we 320, whatever, short? It's there's realities of planning that affect that bring it down to that 1288.
Correct, and if all of you that have had high school students, when you sit down to fill out your course schedule, and it's almost like an 1,100-page document to look at all of our offerings, which are all just and valid, but that is a major player in that capacity piece.
Any other questions now, or are we reserving them for more thought?
I
good read.
truck is delivering them later tonight.
I think a big key component, and you mentioned this a couple of times, is that Roffers report that's going to drive some of this data as well. And we appreciate you taking that swing back around once we have that information.
Absolutely.
In the community, we have a lot of discussion around school capacity going on right now, or potential for school capacity. And I think the combination of those reports, and you coming back to us another time with some updated numbers, is really going to help that conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Speaking of that conversation, 3E, Village Germantown Liaison Reports. Ms. Higginbotham informed me the Economic Development Commission did not meet since our last meeting.
They just voted on a couple contracts for the program, that if you want, like the $25,000 for new business, small business.
Okay, nothing that would directly. Okay.
Right.
Mr. Pollack, on Parks and Rec?
Yeah, I had a conflict during the February meeting, but just to give an update that I had received and reviewed, they had talked about the 4th of July discussion. Since then, it's been determined that the Park and Rec Department will be running or in charge of the 4th of July parade and the fireworks. It's my understanding that there will not be any activities at the park at Fireman's Park during the day. A couple other topics that were discussed was land swap at Blackstone Golf Course, or potential land swap at Blackstone. Also discussed, and this was approved, was a transfer of MMSD land from Goldendale to Wilderness Park. Also, the summer 2025 program fees were approved as well. There is a meeting tomorrow at 5:30. Items on that particular agenda is Germantown Soccer Club excavation at Friedenfeld, a sign recognizing David J. Frank, Park and Rec at-large commission spot, commission spot, and a discussion around possibility of changing the day and time to ensure quorum is achieved as often as possible.
Okay, thank you. One of those discussions will work its way into my report. The Planning Commission met March 10th, this last Monday, or previous Monday, at 6:30 at the Germantown Village Hall. Many discussions around development. First was a zoning change. This is to align better with state statutes enacted in 23, with a request that more compliance is leaned into in 2025. That is regarding the density of zoning, change in zoning density from a 3/4 to a more simple majority vote to make a parcel more dense or an area more dense, and going to a simple majority to a 3/4 majority to make it less dense. That's in direct opposite of what it currently was prior to the state statutes. It sounds like developer lobbyists back in the late teens and early 20s affected that change at the state level, and the village is looking to align more closely with that. It does play into items B and C of the discussions we had there. B was the village center. As many of you are aware, we participated in what I thought was a very, very productive meeting on the 11th that we held in cooperation with some of the village members, specifically the village administrator and the president. That project is on their agenda again this evening. We'll see what comes of that. As far as what the village goes in direction with that. They did touch on the Blackstone Golf Course with some mapping and some light renderings as to what that could potentially look like. That is current contract conversation or negotiations between the village and the owners of the Blackstone Golf Course, where a land swap would be in place or potentially at play to give the owners of the golf course more buildable land in the old recycling center that is at the end of Main Street, west end of Main Street, and some of the existing park, not to include the baseball fields, but the pickleball courts, and I believe there's like a skateboard park along Main Street there. the village would receive a larger swath of land, wetland area for park usage to the north of what that development would ultimately be, and some waterway access from that end of it. That project, it seems like it's coming forward with more of a mixed use, similar to the Village Center project, commercial potentials along with residential potential expansion. So we'll continue to monitor those. Obviously, in our meeting on the 11th, in a collaborative effort, we did issue a resolution to the village that you're all aware of, and I just kind of want to ground it back in that opening statement. As we move forward in our continuing discussions with them, this resolution is on the full board agenda for this evening, but I do want to just revisit that opening statement in there. The whereas Germantown School Board is committed to a strong working relationship with the Village of Germantown to assist both in strategic planning to achieve the best possible outcomes of the village residents, for the village residents and the students of the Germantown School District. I think that was really a well-written precedent setter for the rest of that resolution. I appreciate the board's work on that and some of the editing that took place. That is on their agenda. At the end of that meeting, there was some statements made, and I don't know if they were misstated or just were unclear on what took place as far as the advancement of TID potential for that village center. It looks like when they stated the public notice was already issued and there was a clock ticking as far as process goes around it. That village public notice did not occur until this Saturday, and it was not supported by village action. At our meeting on the 11th, it was stated the land purchases and action on TID were voted on. That's the village February 17th meeting. Review of that looks as if it was only land purchase, so they've added a item after reviewing our resolution this evening on their agenda to address maybe that inadequacies in action taken by the village. So we'll see how that plays out, and we'll continue to work on that partnership and build out that understanding. PRA and Cullen, along with Roffers, are going to drive a lot of that information we can provide them, and we'll continue down that path. At this time, I don't have anything else. We do have an agenda item later on this evening. We can get into some more of the details if anyone has questions for me. None? Okay. I have citizen comments. We have one. We just ask that you keep it to 3 minutes. I'm not going to read the whole statement here. Please stay away from comments that may interest to any district personnel or citizens that are present. And that is Todd Schneider, GEA rep, I believe.
Excuse me, yeah, my name is Todd Schneider, here representing the GEA. I'm also a Germantown resident. If you have any questions for me, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. That is item 4. We will move on to 5, consent agenda. 5A, approval of February 17th, 2025 meeting minutes. B, approval of March 11, 2025 meeting minutes. C, approval of teacher resignations. D, approval of teacher contracts. And E, approval of donations.
Move approval of consent agenda, items A through E.
Second.
Mr. Barney with the motion, Ms. Higginbotham with the second. Any discussion?
I'd be happy to read off our donations this evening.
I was going to say, usually we get that request, so please do.
I'd love to hear those.
Thank you. This evening, it looks like we have 4 different donations. The first being from the Milwaukee School of Engineering, $500 towards our high school robotics team. Kennedy Middle School PTA donated $2,250 to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science classrooms for purchase of supplies. And Germantown Athletic Booster Club donated $2,947.76 for awards and athletic tape for GHS athletics and activities. And 3 and 2 Booster Club donated $1,531.65 for uniform jackets for our boys high school varsity baseball team and coaches.
Awesome. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, consent agenda passes. 6, Personnel Committee, Mr. Brown.
Okay. We have kind of a full meeting tonight, so I'll make this very brief in the interest of time and just touch on some highlights. As usual, in the March 3rd meeting, it was open to the public. It was broadcast live, and you can find replays of the meeting on the YouTube channel. Go to the Germantown School District website, select School Board. Then halfway down the page, it says Meetings, Recordings, and Select Videos. Under the reports and updates, we covered the usual teacher contracts and staffing updates. We also covered a brief update on the support staff compensation study, which is moving along as scheduled, with the revised model anticipated to be brought forward for review and possible approval next month. New business consisted of the preliminary 2025-2026 teacher staffing plan, which there was discussion and charts regarding the process, so if you're interested, watch that video. There's a lot of good information on that. The discussion culminated with the motion that we brought forward to the full board for recommendation. Would you like to hear that now?
You have a positive recommendation? Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Comes forward with a positive recommendation to the full board to approve the proposed staffing plan for the 25-26 school year and to issue 276 regular full-time teaching contracts and up to 10 part-time teaching contracts.
Comes forward with a positive recommendation, does not require a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I guess I'll add it. My guess is there might be some adjustment to that throughout the process, but early on, this is what we're looking at.
Correct, this is preliminary in nature, and as enrollment changes from now really into probably August, September, there's the potential for change.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes.
The last item of business is we discussed the spring coaching contracts, and we brought forward a motion with that, a positive recommendation for the full board to approve Germantown High School and Kennedy Middle School spring coaching contracts.
That comes forward with a positive recommendation, doesn't require a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes.
Mike, would you like to add anything, or we're good?
Good? Okay, Personnel Committee's taken care of. Item 7, Teaching and Learning Committee. Ms. Higginbotham.
Okay, the Teaching and Learning Committee met on March 3rd, 2025. Jake was able to give us an update on the progress the district is making on Act 20, specifically how it pertains to Wonders. We currently do have students that are on the plan, being below 25 percentile in literacy that was identified through Ames Web and then NWA reading fluency. We're currently halfway through that first round of personalized plans, and we're already seeing progress in some students who are meeting the criteria that would, be able to exit them. So that's positive news. If they do reach those benchmarks, we are still, students are not exiting that program. They continue to stay in the program through the whole, through their whole reading program. Once they do exit that reading plan, we will continue to monitor these students to ensure that they continue to progress. Along with the reading program, we've already met compliance for Act 20 training. All of our teachers have started the training through Cox Campus with plans of completion by the end of next school year. The district is also providing professional development and resources that connect what they're learning through the Cox Campus and aligning it with Wonders. Germantown School District also had its first literacy night. It's held February 25th at MacArthur. Parents were given information about how understanding the foundational skills of reading, which will help them once their students come home to keep the instructional strategies going to help them progress. The committee also discussed, we'll be reviewing resources for AP Chemistry, AP Physics, and AP Stats. That is in line with the AP curriculum requirement that dictate that we have updated textbooks within the last 10 years. So Jake and his team will be reviewing multiple textbooks and then bringing those to the Teaching and Learning Committee for approval. So we thank them in advance for all the time that they will be spending reviewing textbooks. Finally, there are two items that were passed on to the Finance Committee. We heard about both those tonight, the 240 touchscreen Chromebooks and the charging cards, and then also Katie Cole's commitment to our mental health grant. Looking forward to updates on those as those progress. So we will anticipate in Finance Committee to see how those turned out for us. So with that, I will move it on.
You sent some positive recommendations over to finance regarding those topics.
Correct.
I'll hear about that
Yep.
right now. Michael Loth. 8, Finance Committee.
Okay, yes, the Finance Committee met earlier this evening here at the PAC, 6:15 PM. That's videoed, so to get the whole thing, you can see that in just a day or so online. We will do the Cliff's Notes version here in respect of time this evening. So full board item 8A, Finance Committee meeting updates. We did consent of vouchers with Brittany answering a few questions for us. More updates. We went through Brittany's variance report. Spending is up, but revenues are also up. There's $7.3 million in fund balance, but some is reserved for some items, so we don't really have that much money in the bank. Just so you know.
Every penny is utilized.
Right. We had, Brittany did also an updates, a school fees report, and it turns out that we are in line with state statutes, and DPI reviewed our school fees back in 2022, so we are good on that account. Excuse me. Full board item 8B, 2024-2025 budget adjustments. This always happens because we don't always know the exact numbers when we approve the budget at the annual meeting. So we bring forward to the Board of Education with a positive recommendation to approve the 2024-2025 budget adjustments.
Comes forward with a positive recommendation. Does not require a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. That passes.
Okay, full board item 8C, mental health grant plan. Katie Cole went through that for us in finance in great detail. The training that she was talking about will be at the WellPoint facility off Capitol Drive. And we bring a motion with a positive recommendation from the Teaching and Learning Committee to the Finance Committee to approve 12 staff members to take trauma-sensitive schools training, train the trainer, 4-day professional development through WellPoint Care Network in the amount not to exceed $33,000 funded by school-based mental health state funding grant.
Coming forward with a positive recommendation. Does it require a second? Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. That passes.
Okay, full board item 8D, 2024-2025 CISA contract amendments. 1, contract adjustments for an increase in vision, in orientation and mobility services in the amount of $8,328 funded out of the IDEA Individuals with Disabilities Education Act flow-through grant.
Coming forward with a positive recommendation. Does it require a second? Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. That passes.
Okay, full board item 8E, Chromebook purchase. This will be 240 ASUS computers, and they are for the younger students, K through grade 2. Motion with a positive recommendation to the full board with a positive recommendation from the Finance Committee to approve the purchase of 240 touchscreen Chromebooks, corresponding Google licenses, and 8 charging cards from BDJ Tech for an amount not to exceed $88,820 using Common School Library Aid.
Coming forward with a positive recommendation does not require a second. Any discussion? Just one quick. The library aid, that's a flow through, correct? It's dictated by what it can be spent on?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes.
Okay, full board item 8F, Kennedy Middle School kitchen equipment purchase. There's a number of hot and cold carts included in this. I was rather impressed that our old equipment for serving students is 29 years old, so it seems like we got our use out of that equipment. Anyway, this material was gone over by Jill Seefeld from Food and Nutrition for the Finance Committee. Motion to bring forward to the Board of Education with a positive recommendation from the Finance Committee to approve the purchase for Kennedy Middle School kitchen equipment as presented and described using Bolter Food Service Design and Nelco Electric for an amount not to exceed $84,842.77 unless electrical code violations are discovered during install.
Coming forward with a positive recommendation does not require a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes.
And that was it. We adjourned at 6:52 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 9A, new business. A is discussion action to approve the voting status of Germantown School District regarding the Village of Germantown Tax Increment District Number 10 proposal. That is myself. That is currently up for discussion at the village meeting that's happening congruent with this. So we're not exactly sure where they're lining up with it, but in order, given email communication we've received about potential dates and need for meetings for the Joint Review Board, we thought it was pertinent to have it on this agenda. Otherwise, we'd be calling potentially an emergency meeting to continue that discussion. Obviously, we were all there Tuesday in regards to the TID and to the development discussion for the Village Center, which is the center of the potential TID proposal coming. At this point, the village has presented us at that meeting with quite a bit of information regarding TIDs and their process. This one is unique in that it would include and begin with residential. That's something we have not seen in this village. This will be a first of its kind. We've just talked through the effects of that on this district and what the needs for some of these studies to come back to help us continue that discussion. I would open it up for discussion or a potential motion. No. Mr. Barney.
Yeah, I guess since we won't meet as a full board regularly, or nothing scheduled until after the March 31st Joint Review Board, I think we have to make an up or down decision tonight so that our representative going to that meeting knows which way this board wants them to vote. I'm hopeful that the village takes action tonight to put things on hold, but we won't know that before we make a decision here tonight. If they do put it on hold, obviously then we will have some time to get our information back from the MD Roffer study. Who knows, it might turn out that MD Roffer says our enrollment's gonna fall off a cliff. We may go back to the village and say, hey, we want you to accelerate this thing. But we don't know because we don't have the results of that study yet. So I'm in favor of definitely moving forward with a vote. I'll wait for the rest of the discussion, but I think we definitely have to come up with a decision tonight on the TID.
Okay. I don't disagree with that, just to ensure business flow for the district and the village. It might be obstructive if we don't.
Right, I mean, whatever decision we make tonight, we may revisit it a month from now, once we have more information, because that may change our minds.
Could be addressed in the motion, how the motion's written. Any further discussion regarding the TID 10 potential?
I would just throw out there the fact that why this is important to this body is because we are one of the taxing authorities. And because of that, we get the one vote at the Joint Review Board. So the discussion last week, the discussion we're about to have tonight, is important for those people in our district that we represent.
Mr. Lowe?
Most TIDs are industrial. That's what the village has been doing. I checked with one of our neighboring communities, and in that instance, most TIDs were also industrial. Sometimes the TIDs were in a blighted area, which is what they are supposed to be for. Sometimes they are in a greenfield area, which I believe is legal by Wisconsin state law, but not preferred in my opinion. Anyways, Germantown has done both blighted area TIDs and greenfield TIDs, so in a very similar fashion. What is rare is a TID for housing, and the reason for that is it's the school district portion of the taxes that pay for the TID. When it's industrial, we don't particularly get a lot of extra students from an industrial TID unless workers that work in that industrial park decide to move to Germantown because the schools are so great. And I don't say that humorously either, I'm serious. But typically, a TID is not there for housing like apartment buildings where we would gain students, but our portion of the tax would go to paying for the improvements to the land and so on. For the apartments, we wouldn't get the benefit of the taxes for the students that we're receiving. So the school district could be in trouble if we gain a lot of students without gaining the revenue.
Well, and I think this TID sets precedent around residential use for TIDs, right?
Right.
And to your point, on the taxation side and the revenue side, what we don't receive is if we have multiple students move into that TID, it takes a certain amount of local taxing revenue to help support their educational process. We receive funding from the state, and we'll still receive that state aid, but that doesn't make the funding for that student whole. So now we'd have students coming into our district in an underfunded capacity until the TID would, I don't want to use the word expire, but until it would close. And at that point, we would then receive the appropriate amount of funding. However, the numbers we were seeing were 27 years for potential on the TID closure, and that's enough years, and then some for kids to start in 4K and be gone, and a new group to come in, and that means we're losing the totality of that expense, which, given some of the information we heard this evening, could be detrimental to our budgetary process. And it really is about making sure those kids have the adequate space for the adequate experience, and our staff has the adequate space to not be overburdened by overcapacity classes, so they can provide that right educational environment. This is, to me, it's a less the stand on a TID in general, but when it comes to residential, that really heightens the impact into the school district. I think that was the point you were driving at.
Right.
Obviously, there's some history here. the village is gonna continue. We have that lingering, they have their meeting going on right now. And for all we know is they've listened to our resolution and accepted it and are placing things on hold. We'll find out here shortly how that goes. We know several trustees have reached out and asked more questions. The administrators that reached out and asked more questions for clarification. We all, both sides, I think, understand the need for these data points that we were asking for that hold. But reality is if their vote was to move forward tonight, we need to prepare our member with a vote. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I would take a motion.
Make a motion to instruct the school district representative to vote no on the proposed TID 10, and the school district may reconsider this motion if new information requires we change our position or at least discuss our position.
Okay, Mr. Barney with the motion, Mr. Pollock with the second. We'll move into the discussion portion then. I think that's a great approach. Obviously, we don't know. There could be what their action is going to be tonight. So to have that motion include the ability to come back to the table and adjust while providing a vote and/or potential information we receive, whether it's from the village or our study partners. I think that's a great way to proceed with the advisement of the vote. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I guess for me, it just comes down to the lack of complete information on what the enrollment could look like from 400 or more units. The village has had two different competing numbers. They have one that says you get 0.02 students per unit, which would end up with maybe 6 to 8 students across the entire village center area. But then another report presented to Planning Commission last week showed there could be 100 or more students across 400 units. Quite a big difference going from 8 on one end to 100 on the other end. I'm hoping the MD Roffers report gives us a little more clarity on that.
I think, kind of to piggyback on that too, the initial numbers they were giving us is based off phase 1 of the project. So it should be noted, subsequent phases will add more residential than that first phase, which I believe was 300 to 500, depending on what a developer would come in and choose to build. The other is the land capacity there, and a study that would talk about multifamily homes being 0.02 versus 0.5 on a single family. The amount of single family homes you could fit in that land, while probably not a desirable place to put single family homes, is greatly reduced compared to the amount of vertical apartment units you can build in that. So while yes, the per unit number is lower, the unit number is drastically higher. That would come in and impact. I think in this scenario, you also kind of line it with the Blackstone project that's coming up. And there's been some information involved in those conversations that there's interest potentially in a TID in a similar development in that area, which would mean more dense impact residential. The village center would impact MAC, and as our borders reside right now, the Blackstone project would impact County Line. The initial thought in the village had actually reached out and asked about is it be able to move those lines, and the answer is of course we can, but the one that would make sense to move that to would be Rockfield, which we actually saw, given its small capacity, we're already there, in one that the elementaries don't carry as much flexibility as what we saw in the middle school and in the high school. There's a third project not supported, or not supported, but not involving the village, that may impact Amy Bell off the intersection of County Line and Lannon. So that's also not a feasible place to then move some of these students for capacity use, because if that project comes forward, solely funded by the developers, we might be using that space we saw tonight that is available in that building. So realistically, I look at it as, I know we're talking about TID 10 specifically, but we have to think about the domino effect of these decisions as it impacts the totality of the village moving forward. I think the third domino of it is we represent more municipalities than just the village. So the village is discussing and potentially moving forward with things that are going to cause our district some financial, I don't call it strife, but decisions that need to be made. And we may be asking citizens of Richfield and Jackson and Polk and the town of Germantown, right, our surrounding communities, our impacted communities to help with that financial load. And they aren't actually going to receive the benefits of this potential TID because it's a Germantown-centric scenario. So we do have to look out for those constituents. It's a multi-layered conversation. I think this board's taken a great approach and conversation to it. The village has come to the table. Those aren't easy situations to get out, and I'm glad that that worked out and we were able to. At this time, I have to be a no. I can't come to a conclusion where this would make sense without the totality of the information to support the decision. So for now, I'm a no, and if those facts change, maybe that changes with it, and I appreciate the motion carrying the ability to do that.
So when I looked at this, obviously I tried to have my school board blinders on, focus solely on how this TID 10 may impact our school district. Some of these are going to be a little bit of a repeat that's already been mentioned, but I can't help but highlight some of these items. The reality is, when we look at these items, as well as a couple of items that we have to address, like school safety and some other things, in many ways you have to look at it from the worst case scenario, because that way you can be most prepared for that. If it's anything short of a worst case scenario, at least we've planned appropriately. But the reality of it is, if this TID involves residential housing, no matter what that looks like, it has the potential to divert funds from the schools, period. That's the reality. It doesn't matter if it's 0.02 kids per unit or something else. The fact is that if a residential housing complex goes out, we will have the potential for higher enrollment, which means, and it's important to point out, it's already been pointed out, that this sort of TID is very different than a commercial or industrial TID. Mr. Lota pointed that out too, where when it comes to residential pieces, it's a totally different calculus than it is for a commercial or industrial piece, or an industrial TID. The fact is that if we have higher enrollment, and without those necessary taxes that also come in from it, there's a chance we have to cut programs. There's a chance that we have to increase class size. There's a chance that we need to, and we talked about this earlier, with the potential, obviously, very large number of 71 million, we may have to defer necessary improvements. There's the long-term ramifications, up to 27 years, where we could actually have a couple of cycles of kids coming through. As we've seen the past several years during the summer months, we see enrollment change. And as Dr. Reuter correctly has pointed out, it's because of a transient population. It's not the people who've lived in the same apartments for years and years. Transient is those people who are here for short-term periods. It could be a single man living in an apartment that moves out, and now a small family moves into that same apartment. That's a transient situation. Same thing with a small family leaving and someone without a child coming in. That's an example of a transient situation. We've seen it before, we're going to see it again this summer, that we have to work with. And while it may not seem to be a big deal to have 1 or 2 extra kids here and there coming in, the class size may go from 25 to 27. And that puts an additional burden on that teacher, because he or she now has a couple extra kids that they need to manage, that they need to make sure they're paying attention to, that they're getting any questions or situations addressed with those 1 or 2 extra kids. May not necessarily seem like a big deal because it's only 1 or 2 kids, but it is a big deal. As you could probably tell, I will be voting no for this one.
Sure, I can actually provide some fact around what you were discussing about the transitory nature of an apartment situation. One other question we received from a trustee was how many students do we have in Saxony Village? And I think it's a good, interesting question because that's a development that's happened more recently, but it's 300 plus units. And initially we had, I believe it was 25. And I think in this week or next week, we're going to add 2 more. So we're at 27. And that's not something we can't accommodate, but sometimes those students come in, depending on what school district they're coming from, with greater need to catch up and supports that we have to provide. And we do every time, and our staff does every time, but that's that added stress to that classroom to ensure that this new student is assimilating and being provided those supports. Similarly, we can have a scenario where they move out in the middle of the school year, and now we're overstaffed in situations. And that's a real staff concern. We've heard that from our staff. We've heard that through our a little bit in the comp study. We've planned with that on setting policy around class size to help stabilize and normalize those situations. But that is, to me, that's a crux of some of this is in our staff consideration side, right? How we build this out and make this a successful place to have a career, and really does single-family housing allow for more stability and predictability? I think that answer is yes. Given what we see real time every year, and then this is one situation, right, with a couple students coming in mid-school year or late in the school year at this point. But the reality is that happens throughout the school year for these staff. And it is an adjustment and juggle for them to take on. So we have to consider that side of it. I guess I don't have much more to say on it. If anyone else does, or we can move to a vote. In this scenario, I think the last time we called for a roll call vote, so I would do that again here. Sorry, I forgot to run that one by you. Roll call vote.
Ewert.
No.
I can keep going, but I want to clarify. The motion was to vote no.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my vote will be yes to vote no, correct. We have to do it in the affirmative, yes.
Right, okay. So Ewert is a yes?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Barney's yes. Loth?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Higginbotham?
Yes.
6-0.
One absent.
And
Okay, that passes as the recommendation. B, discussion and, 9, new business B, discussion and possible action to amend the 24-25 Board of Education meeting schedule. That's myself. I think there was one scenario that I saw where we may be in meetings and due to potential board member absentee, I might have to sit in for the committees on that. So I would just ask as that date comes, it aligns with a planning commission meeting I will have to be at regarding everything we've just discussed. Are we flexible to have a different member sit in for that?
Correct.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be me?
Correct.
Do we have any other overlapping?
I don't believe so. I think part of the discussion was based on at the last meeting, the April 28th meeting. And again, committees do not have to be run on the nights that are published here. They're just recommended nights for the community. And we're subject to open meetings law for committees, so we just have to have 24-hour notice. And we've done this before. We've run committees on other nights as long as there's a quorum of the committee.
So, and I know this was on the agenda for the 11th as well.
And we were waiting, it was put to this a week later to this meeting.
Just to see if any
depending on the
changes.
village, yeah. And we know right now to Mr. Barney's motion that it is planned from the village to run proposed vote on the 31st. So this would give us, if need be, we could call a meeting prior to 31st if things change.
Do we see any, we have an election coming, do we see any need to ensure, the next time this full body meets,
We'll have
the results
our-
of that election will be in, we'll need potential new members sworn in or re-sworn in. Will that take place before a full board meeting?
Yes.
At any date that it can take place?
And our practice between Ms. Timmerman and I have been to swear newly elected in at district office, not as at a board meeting.
And do we anticipate that happening before committee meetings? At the beginning of that month, because that's a very close window? Or would it be post the committee meetings?
Go ahead, Mr. Cook.
And I believe the term would start on the third Monday. So if we have committee meetings early in the month.
Go ahead,
the
Melissa.
4th.
The term starts on April 28th. That is the day that the new member can start. We swear them in usually 3 to 7 days before that date to make sure that they're sworn in by the day that they take office. But they do not take office until that Monday, the 28th.
So they will not serve, new board member would not serve until 28th or later?
Correct.
So we don't need to move anything to accommodate that?
Correct. Because our board meeting is on the 28th, and I believe that's why we have, it's not on the third Thursday because of our election cycle.
Okay.
Or third Monday, I'm sorry, not third Thursday. Third.
Obviously, we will update the community if any of this changes between now and then, given village action tonight, it may.
There may be need to call another board meeting similar to what we did last week, but our scheduled approved board agenda will stay as is right now.
I appreciate the flexibility in keeping the district's work at hand and in a timely manner. I'd ask the community to understand that and understand that's the approach and why we're taking some of that action. Once again, the committee meetings can be moved a little easier than the full board meetings. And we'll continue down that process, though, to ensure we can meet all of our obligations. I don't think any decision or motion has to come forward regarding that. So I can move on to C if there's no further discussion. Hearing none, we'll go to C, discussion and action to approve early college credit program and Start College Now applications. Mr. Miziak.
Good evening again. This is the second batch of ECCP and Start College Now applications that I'm bringing to you. The summer-fall applications creates kind of a funny window for us, so that's why they come in 2 batches. So we had an additional 5 applications that were submitted for ECCP. Students applied for courses there were 7 additional ones. There were students who applied for courses in German, economic and business statistics, software engineering, and foundations of philosophy. For these applications, these are all being submitted for the fall ECCP, and all paperwork was submitted before the March 1st deadline. And then for our Start College Now students, in addition to the applications that I brought in February, which was 12 applications, Germantown High School had 6 students submit paperwork to attend Wisconsin Technical Colleges in the spring. 1 student submitted for social media marketing, and 5 students submitted for the Certified Nursing Assistant Program. Again, all paperwork was submitted by the March 1st deadline.
I would include, thanks Mr. Miziak, I'd include, based on our conversation earlier about fees, these are courses that we cannot charge students fees for under statute, and we pay the cost. We do get a percentage reimbursement from the state, but we do not say you can only take an early college credit course or Start College Now if you pay X dollars.
I'll take a motion, sir.
Motion to approve the early college credit program and the Start College Now request as presented.
Second.
Marty with the motion, Ms. Higginbotham with the second. We'll open up for discussion. If we're hearing none, take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes. 9D, discussion and action approve overnight travel training request. Dr. Reuter with another one.
Thank you. We have 4 overnight travel requests this evening, and we've gone about this a little different than in the past where we lumped them all into one versus multiple new business items. So you'll see 4 trips, 1 for our GHS students, 4 students and an advisor to go to the HOSA International Leadership Conference, in Nashville, Tennessee, from June 17th to 22nd of 2025. Our second trip is 2 students and 1 advisor from the high school to attend Skills USA National Leadership Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, excuse me, from July 23rd to the 27th of 2025. A third trip for 41 students and 3 advisors from the high school to attend the FBLA State Leadership Conference and Competition in Green Bay from March 31st through April 1st of 2025. And the final one is 3 students and 1 advisor from the high school to attend the National DECA Competition in Orlando, Florida from April 25th through the 30th of 2025. So we're looking to approve all overnight travels for each of those groups.
Thank you, Mr. Reuter. I'll entertain a motion. Sorry, Dr. Reuter.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the overnight travel request for GHS HOSA, GHS Skills USA, GHS FBLA, and GHS DECA.
I'll second.
Mr. Polk with a motion, Mr. Brown with the second. Any discussion?
I like the new format. Consolidated.
Just trying to, it's already 9/11.
And I wish them the best of luck.
Any further discussion? Good luck, everybody. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes. Mr. Brown asked me to circle back to one item, and I think it's just he would like to acknowledge something.
Correct.
Please be pleased with that.
Speaking of order, I missed this in the consent agenda. We did have 3 teachers retire that we'd like to say thank you for your service to. And that's Tom Lang, who began his service in Germantown School District in August of '24. He was special technology education teacher at Keddie Middle School. Marion Sargent, who began her teaching career in Germantown in August of '24, was the special education teacher at Germantown High School. And we have Mr. Paul Erickson, who began his teaching career in 2022 as an English teacher in Germantown High School. Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you. I apologize. I was moving fast through the consent agenda after donations. With that, we will move on to item 10, closed session. I do believe we will reconvene into open after this. So if you'd like, please stick around. Closed session A, motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub C to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any employee, A, early retirement consideration, and D, Director of Human Resources.
So moved.
Mr. Pollock with the motion. Higginbotham with the second. Roll call.
Ewert.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Barnes, yes. Loth.
Yes.
Pollock.
Yes.
Higginbotham.
Yes.
9:13.
We will be enclosed at 9:13. If you don't feel like sticking around, please drive home safe. Otherwise, we shall be back shortly. We convene back into open session at 9:39, March 17th. And I don't have the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Sorry. Tom's got the motion for us.
Motion to approve the early retirement agreement for Carla Bierman.
Second.
Mr. Barney with the motion, Ms. Higginbotham with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes. Congratulations on your retirement, Ms. Bierman. And I will hear one more motion.
Move adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Barney with the motion, Mr. Pollock with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. We are adjourned at 9:40 p.m.